You're listening to the Headless WP podcast, where we discuss all things Headless WordPress. The Headless WP podcast is a production of the WP Engine Developer Relations team. If you're interested in more content on Headless WordPress, check out developers.wpengine.com for blog posts, tutorials, videos, and more. All right, welcome to this episode of the Headless WP podcast. I am Jeff Everhart, and I am joined today by my co-host, Fran Agulto, and we have a guest, Alexa Spalato, who is the founder of Gatsby WP Themes, a company focused on building Gatsby themes designed to work with WordPress. And she spent a number of years being very active in the Headless WordPress space, and is one of the first, if not the first person, to really start staking out territory in the Headless WordPress theme space. So welcome to both of you. How are y'all doing this afternoon?
Fine. Hello. Thanks to have me. I'm super happy to be there.
Yeah, we're very excited.
As always,
Fran,
Jeff,
I know you're stoked. Yeah,
I'm stoked. I'm definitely stoked. You can never get Fran unstoked, but I'm super stoked today because Alexa is actually, I consider her one of my personal friends in the developer world. Also, I think, it's very important that there's this thing about like, hey, especially in engineering, there's a lot of women that are trying to break in, and like the barrier of entry is kind of high.
Yes.
And, it's kind of male dominated. But leaders and like people in the space like Alexa, who essentially will get to know how her journey was. But ladies, you can get into coding. Come on in. So yes, I'm super stoked for her to be here.
For sure. All right, well, Fran, you want to kick us off with our first question of today?
Yeah, absolutely. So Alexa, I do want to ask, can you just give us like the foundation? What was your overall journey into tech? What did you do before, and what was the main point in your life? Like, I'm going to get into this, and then how did you learn?
Okay. So it's not the usual path because I studied pharmacy, which I really didn't like. Then I did a business school, which I didn't like neither. That was my family, pushing me to having a classic path because I wanted to be an actress. And so after that, I let everything and I went to a drama school in Paris. But becoming an artist, wanting to be an artist is really difficult. So I did many, many jobs and things. And I really was not thinking to go into tech because I was considering myself like an artist. So it happens by chance. First, I had a roommate that was doing a website and said, "Oh, you have learned by yourself and you're independent. I like that." So I took Dreamweaver and in visual. I was not thinking about coding. That was the first thing with the web. And then it was only 10 years ago. I was assistant for a PR, and I said, "Oh, I can do your website." And I do a first website with Wix. So it's a creative part that was attracting me. I was thinking that was the design that was attracting me. And quickly I discovered WordPress, and I was fascinated by the themes. First, I was taking themes, I can build that. And it was really triggering my creative side. And 6 months after, I was working for an agency in Paris, as a freelancer and having my first clients, but only assembling themes. But quickly, I'm quickly bored. So with themes,
I think lots of developers, are quickly bored.
That's the key. That's the key. And so, so I begin to play with a little CSS and changing things, and I was over the moon when I put the logo in the middle, for example. I remember this day. And then I wanted to do my own themes. So I learned to do custom theme development in WordPress. And then I passed several years. I entered into Codable as a WordPress expert in 2014. And my specialty was doing custom theme development. So people was sending me the design and everything, and with complex back office with custom fields and things like that. And it was working very well. But guess what? I get bored. And I'm a front end. So in WordPress, but if you don't do backend, you end up doing only CSS. And I was needing something else, and not to be prisoner of the WordPress templating system. I was needing something else. So I did a JavaScript full stack bootcamp in 2018. So I learned Node, React, everything. And after that, I was, what I'm going to do? And then I met Gatsby.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
That's the story.
Well, yeah. And so I got a follow-up question that's going to dig in a little bit. So it seems like you, looking at your background, you did spend a lot of time as a freelancer. So, and I think a lot of people who get involved with WordPress are freelancers, and like that's a huge part of WordPress's target market. So what would you say are the pros and cons of being fully freelance are as a developer?
Okay, the big pro is freedom, of course, because you do what you want when you want. You can choose your clients. You can, you don't have you can work when you want from where you want. The cons, it's you are not always secure. You can have clients that really are hard and can hit you alive, I would say. No, I thought that it's a really good moment to ask me this question, because for 10 years I've been really freelancing, and it was really going good. I have the chance to enter into Codable quite early too. So Codable is this platform when you get work from them, and you have good clients.
And is that similar to like TopTal? I think is another one that does that.
It's different.
Okay.
Because on Codable you receive emails with demands that can be a small thing, can be a fixed CSS to a big project of 10,000 and more. And so you apply live in a chat room, and you're in competency with other people. While in TopTal, you pass an exam too, and then you are integrated to teams, and you can work on a project for 6 months, but you don't have to struggle to get the project. So it's a bit different. So yes, Codable has been really helpful in having me clients all around the world, and so it's really a good training. And I was going the path to build an agency, and this year really I realized a really hard project, and clients, much higher you go, much you begin to hit problems. And I realized that if you go to the agency path, then I will have to manage people, manage clients, do marketing. And that's not my thing. What I like is to learn, to create, to communicate, to help people. And so it's not signed, but I'm going to become a developer relation. I don't say anything for the moment, but that's a new thing.
Wait for the big announcement to drop. Yeah, but congratulations.
You heard it.
I definitely, the scoop.
I'm joining your family. Yeah.
You know what's funny, Alexa, is that you kind of already have been a part of the family, because you're definitely active in the headless WordPress space. I know you're in the freelance world, and it's interesting because I have actually 2 sub questions that tail off. The first thing is, obviously, you've done a lot of work around Gatsby and have created themes and whatnot. I was wondering, can you kind of describe and guide me, and you can say, hey, Fran, you're a bad friend. Hey, Fran, but I just did not have time. You sent me an email with your themes and your docs. I didn't have time to touch them. I'm so sorry. I was doing some stuff with on-demand regeneration next, so I'm sorry. But can you kind of describe and walk our listeners through some of the products that Gatsby WordPress Themes offers?
Okay. So they are premium themes with a back office in WordPress and a front in Gatsby. That's the best definition. So we begin with blog themes, and now we have built a new theme, which is the agency starter, with ACF flexible content. So it integrates a builder with a dozen of components. That I have to explain one notion that is quite different from WordPress. What we call themes in Gatsby, it's more like plugins. So and so it's things like you plug into your project that we call the starter. Okay, and for example, I have this theme, Gatsby WP theme ACF builder, and in this theme I have built some components that are the ACF flexible content blocks. Okay. And what I have done is I have done them unstyled into the theme. And then I plug this theme into the starter and I style them into the starter. So it gives a lot of flexibility. And also there is a notion in the Gatsby themes. The Gatsby theme, it's an API. They have an API for themes and plugins, but it's different from WordPress. And so when you have a theme, you can have options, and you can also, for example, take a component. And you can, if you want to change the GS6, the HTML or the data, then you can shadow it. It means you copy the component and you change it inside the starter. A bit like in the child themes when you change something. It's a bit complex to explain because it's really different than WordPress theme. You can mix several themes. You can have for example, we have a theme for comments, another for search. These are functionalities that are available in all the themes. So we make them a theme, so they're like plugins, and we take the components of the theme inside our starter. So you have like Lego blocks that you can, and functionalities that you can take from the themes and assemble all that. So the advantage is you can bring that to different starter, different projects, and we can make updates, and it would be available in your starter.
Okay. I think that's really neat, because I guess I didn't really when I was reading the website and looking at them, I definitely assumed that there was like the front end code. But to hear that you've also like structured out the back end for people too with some opinionated choices is really neat, because I think we at WP Engine have launched like a product we're calling blueprints, which are essentially kind of like, I think, your Gatsby WP themes, right? It's got this front end that has some opinionated choices, but then it's also like pre-installs all these plugins for you and makes a bunch of that back end organization happen as well, so that they talk to each other. So that's a really cool, neat design pattern. And I think something that people are looking for in the headless space, because there's just lots of configuration options. And so the more out of the box it can become, I think the more successful this type of stuff will be.
I try to make something consistent, and with this new theme, what will be possible for people, it's, if you look at the starter agency, you can, if you remove the styles, then you have only the components. It means that you can take somebody who knows Tailwind CSS or simply CSS, and that is creative, but don't know React and don't know Gatsby, can take this component and style them totally differently and make something totally different. Because I made this component really the most barebone possible, just with the necessary HTML, GS6, and classes, so that can be styled totally differently in the starter. And each component and each block of layout, I put the possibility to have a class and an ID. So you can have a same component in the ICF builder and style it differently. So it lets endless possibilities. And so people with just CSS skills can do almost anything. I have to take time and make some videos about that, because I think that can be really great for people that don't want to learn that, but are creative and know CSS, and then they can really do things and even make their own themes on top of ours.
That's really neat. The extensibility of it is a huge appeal, I think. And that's really, I think, when you're targeting developers, that's probably one of the first things they look for, right? Is can I plug into this and extend it or build my own thing easily on top of it? And that comes up a lot in our conversations. Wow, that's fantastic. Well, so go ahead, Fran.
No, I just kind of now this is an education point for me. And this is one of the cool things about this podcast is because so both you and Alexa have more engineering experience than I do. And this kind of segues right into can you guys give me both, Jeff and Alexa, a quick hit on what Alexa just built with Gatsby Headless WordPress themes? How does it compare? Because I don't mess really much with traditional WordPress. All I do is decouple it and use GraphQL endpoint with WP GraphQL. I don't, and I dump content into it. I've never used it. Yeah. How can you guys both educate me on the traditional and how does it, or is it? Yeah.
Maybe I can do. Yeah. Let me start by, if that's okay, I can just describe what a traditional theme was, and then maybe Alexa can fill in and say, here's what mine does kind of differently, right? So in traditional WordPress themes, right, you have a collection of PHP files that all sort of centers around this index.php, which starts off every request, right? So when I request this, it goes to index.php, and then sort of from there looks at the path in your URL to determine sort of what template is going to resolve that path. So is it categories? Is it a post? Is it a front page.php? And then it'll, queue up that PHP template. And in there, you basically have HTML and then programmatic PHP that goes and gets data from WordPress, and then will say I wanted a card, right? I would start a new WordPress query, call the query loop, and say, give me the last 10 posts with these details. It brings that data back, and then I write a for loop to echo out, my card components. And so it's really just sort of a collection of PHP files that look like that.
Yeah. And
most of that is separate from the functionality. And so that's one distinction, right? That's all about the presentation and what the user sees. And you can do checks and be are they logged in? Things like that, and access these global functions that WordPress makes available. But then that's separate from the plugins, right? And so that's a whole kind of different ball game.
Interesting. Okay, cool. And
so yet it comes to the difference between the Gatsby themes and the WordPress theme, and it comes back to what I was just explaining before. The WordPress themes are really the front end, our presentation, while Gatsby themes are also functionality. Well, they can be both, but personally, I prefer to use them as functionality, things that you are going to reuse in different projects, and you can have options. They are really, really close to the plugins. Gatsby theme and plugins are really very similar. So it's a different concept than WordPress. They are not just a skin.
And I really like that, because what I would find in your use case, right? You have something that you kind of just plug in there and it does all the things. Because when I would build sites in the traditional theming world, I'd have a theme and it would be all these things, but then that theme relied on me having ACF plugins and all these other things installed. And there was you had to know that they needed to be there, for it all to kind of work well together. So the idea that all this stuff is traveling as one package, I think probably makes developers really happy.
Well, I have several packages in the themes, that depends once on another too. So and it depends also, we need ACF inside the WordPress side. So we need all that.
Oh, okay. Cool. So as one of the first people to really kind of get into the headless theming game, what made you decide to pursue that?
Okay, so I come back to after my bootcamp. I was searching what I'm going to do now. Of course, I look at Gutenberg, but I was not seeing really professional opportunities there. And then I found Gatsby. and I began to learn it. And it was my friend Zach Gordon that was doing the JavaScript for WordPress Conf. So I contact him and I say, "Oh, I'm interested to talk about Gatsby." Then we had a call, and he proposed me to do together the first Gatsby themes, porting free WordPress themes to Gatsby. So that's how we began working. Then I did the JavaScript for WordPress Conf. Then Gatsby called me to be speaker at Gatsby Days London. And then I decided to launch premium themes, Gatsby WP Themes premium version, but the free version was already called Gatsby WP Themes. And I began with Zach working on these two. And this is how it's born. And effectively, there was nobody doing that. The truth is, I always wanted to create a product since ever since I'm in tech. That was my dream. The WordPress themes market was already crowded, and then I see, that's my opportunity.
Okay.
So
cool.
That's how it happened.
Wow. So, okay, I'm going to ask a question that you know is coming, Alexa, and this is where
What are you asking?
This is the question that always gets developers' opinions heated, and it gets in the Twitterverse and on social media. Let's talk about frameworks. So, okay. So I'm a Next user. And it's cool because your journey is similar to mine, where I took a React bootcamp. It was a MERN-stack bootcamp, right? Now, obviously, both Gatsby and Next are built on React. I do want to ask you, as far as your focus is concerned, the first kind of question I have is what made you choose Gatsby over Next, or have you messed with Next much? And do you have like your, this is good about Next, this is greater about Gatsby, etc.? Like, why your choice of Gatsby essentially?
Okay. First, when I began with all that, it was in 2019, and Gatsby was really super hype. And I remember it was Westboss that make a tweet that say, "Oh, is everybody rebuilding this blog with Gatsby and MDX?" They say, "Oh, I have to look at Gatsby." And then all things happened like that. And there was a JavaScript for WordPress Conf, Zach that proposed me the themes, and just Gatsby released the theme API. So as I wanted to make themes, it was totally making sense to do this, to choose Gatsby. And then I took it as my day-to-day tool, and I really like it. I have messed with Next also less than with Gatsby. For my personal usage, I prefer Gatsby because I'm mainly focused on marketing websites more than big applications in the demands I have in my work. And Gatsby works really well for that. It's super fast, and it's super fast also to build because you have all this plugin ecosystem. So I'm quite pragmatic and efficient in my work. So some developers really like to rebuild everything from scratch, etc. I believe that if I have a plugin, I take it. If it's good, it's a good one, and I use it. So that's one of the reasons I really love Gatsby. Other people prefer to do everything themselves, and they prefer Next for that too. Then I love also the data layer. So I have all with GraphQL. It's opinionated, but I really like GraphQL. And with the data layer, you can connect any source very easily and quickly, or you can request data at the component level. So for example, if you want to get the menu, you have a hook named use static query, and you can get your data from there. While in Next, you have to make prop drilling to have your data on every page. So that's the thing I'm really missing in Next. Gatsby image is really, really great. Much more than Next, in my opinion. And now it has server-side rendering and
Gatsby's got
Gatsby's
got SSR.
Many people don't know it, but
I didn't know
that. and defer DSR
deferred static generation.
Yes, which is the same thing that Next has.
Sick. Whoa.
And
I know
think
that
that's
Next
really
is better for certain projects too, so I don't say Next is bad, but for my use case, and I think for my themes, which are more for websites than applications, I think Gatsby is the right tool, and also the public. It will be more people that want pre-made things that in Next, people who like to do everything from scratch. So that's why I'm more focused on Gatsby, but Next is a great framework too, and I'm eager to explore other frameworks too.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting, and we had this discussion with a podcast guest just a few weeks ago. We actually had on somebody from Vercel, Lee Robinson, and we talked about frameworks.
Yeah.
And so I think like one of the things he talks about, and I kind of see happening in the space, is that all the frameworks start to borrow from each other. And so Gatsby says,
absolutely.
Next has SSR and DS, they're bringing in those ideas from these other frameworks into Gatsby. I think the Gatsby image component honestly inspired a lot of the Next image component, which I think has sort of caught up in terms of what, they use that as a model and said, well, let's do what Gatsby's doing. And so now that experience is a little better for Next. And so it's just a really cool thing to see. But I also love your answer about like why you chose the thing you chose, because I think as a lot of developers will get like, they'll follow whatever the new hotness is. And I'm not sure that's always like the greatest path. And so I talk about putting on horse blinders where I'm like, I have to actively ignore these things over here so that I just focus on what I'm trying to build with what I already know how to use.
Yes, if you have a good tool to build things, continue using it. I'm super happy to now going into DevRel, because I'm going to have the occasion to test many things.
Yes.
And as a developer, I really love that. But I think as a freelancer or agency, we have to be efficient and to master a tool and use it. And perhaps for certain use cases, using another tool. An agency that I love and that use both tools and work with WordPress and make very good blog posts about both. It's Pixel Point from Alex Barashkov. And
that's interesting, because I just spoke with Alex, but
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we should have him to the podcast.
Yeah, he's coming on.
Those sites are gorgeous. They're just fantastic.
Yes, I love what he does, and we are in contact. We often have calls too, and is really, really an awesome person too. So
yeah, that's going to be. Yeah, what's interesting is that like more often than not, Alexa, with not only in the Headless WordPress Discord channel that we have here, and you're in there too, but just in my own like immediate developer community just here in Austin, Texas, a lot of web developers do ask me whenever I'm just hanging out in Austin and I go to these meetups and whatnot, is that they ask me, they're like, hey, Fran, since you're so stoked on the headless movement and the decoupled movement, API-driven development, all that stuff, Jamstack, what should we use? What do we need to use when we're going to bring WordPress along for the ride, but not use its front end anymore, right? And I think just over this podcast right now, talking to you, I think I'm going to start pointing them toward, because I'm a creature of habit, y'all. I'm sorry. Like even if I'm not thinking about it, even if it's like the worst tool in the world, if it's habit, like I'll use it until like you or Jeff goes, hey, Fran, have you tried this? Oh, Stoke, there's this new thing. I think I'm going to start, because it seems like what you're telling me from a let's get started quickly and I'm not building every single thing from scratch standpoint, Gatsby is probably a better out of the box framework, if you will, for new developers. Am I
I think so. I think there is more things to learn because there are more special things, the API from Gatsby Node and things like that. Okay. Next, it's more really close to React, so there is more magic into Gatsby. But once you know how to use it, you have a lot of things that you can use with plugins and that will speed up the development process.
Okay.
That's my opinion. And many people don't know about the new features of Gatsby, of the server side and all this stuff. People don't know it. And next, it's good for other things. So it depends. But yes, for doing websites and people beginning and not so big project, Gatsby, it will go faster, or even for big projects too. But for marketing websites, I think it's a right tool. So for working with WordPress, it's perfect.
Okay, cool, very cool,
interesting.
Now you have middlewares and things in Next. You have middlewares and things that Gatsby doesn't have. So they have both their specialties. But personally, for my type of work, Gatsby, it's perfect.
I need to mess with Gatsby now. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I convince you.
I gotta check this Gatsby thing out, man. Yeah.
I'm very interested in the data layer, and that all seems really nice to me. Like the idea that I have all these plugins that I can just turn on in Gatsby to integrate with these different data sources. That seems kind of like a dream.
Yes, you can customize the schema also. You can customize the schema in Node, and yes, you can do many things.
Cool.
There is Benedict Reyes that she has a live show that is quite fun and crazy, and she goes really into advanced stuff in Gatsby. So I don't know the Pirate Island Gatsby, something like that. It's, she's great. She's really great.
That actually brings up a thought in my head, Jeff, and Alexa. Maybe it would be helpful too if you become a listener to our podcast. Do you think it'd be helpful to the stuff that we talk about? I wonder if we should leave like collateral links in our podcast page.
Yes.
In case people like, hey, we talked about XYZ here. Here's some links to Alexa's repo or whatever, her Twitter, kind of stuff like that. But cool, that's
we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Well, so we can transition a little bit. And I know you touched on this a little bit with your move into DevRel, but so what does the future for you look like in this space as far as your career, and how do you see WordPress fitting into that? Can you see yourself using WordPress career for a long time? Yep.
I don't honestly, I don't know. Everything changes, and I have this product on WordPress. I come from there, and I love it. It depends if on the project. No, not on the project, because I don't work as freelance anymore. But it can happen. I can have side projects, so I don't discard anything. It depends if I make my themes with another source. We'll see. I will see what have more success, because I will diversify the sources. I will not stay only on WordPress. So I hope so, but I will see the success of people on Headless. Unfortunately, people like you are really pushing the Headless movement. So that's great. And also thanks to WP GraphQL and all the ecosystem that is going around. That are the things that are going to really push WordPress in Headless. What is sure is I'm really into the Headless side, and I will not come back to the traditional one.
Ooh, nice. I like that statement. Because I'm the same way. Like I never really messed with the traditional side.
Yes.
But I have enough of messing with it and talking to other developers on its trade-offs, where everything has a trade-off, but the decoupled headless movement has more upside than the traditional movement. And it's interesting you say that, Alexa, with WordPress anyway, because on a sidebar conversation, Jeff and I were just talking about technologies that won't die or kind of have this like weird foundational, I'm going to stay in your space forever kind of thing. And I whether this opinion might be popular or not, and I want yours, Alexa, I think especially now that like we're pushing this headless WordPress movement, and then this is going to be kind of like a good transition into the next question, but WordPress is a headless CMS, and bringing it into the future, I think, and this is my opinion, even exacerbates the fact that this CMS called WordPress, it's not going to die, y'all. I'm sorry, whether you hate WordPress or love it, it's going to be around till I'm dead and 6 feet under. Like I think like, it's not going to die. You know what I'm just saying? Alexa, how do you feel about that statement? Do you feel the same? Like, do you think like things always change, but this thing called WordPress, I think it's just going to, you know.
Yes, I think it will stay because it's 40% of the market. So it's just gigantic. It's 60% of the CMS. So it's just huge. So there is two things. There is the people, the do-it-yourself people that will continue using builders, Gutenberg, and full site editing and all this stuff. These people generally do small websites and things like that. They will not go headless. There will always be people like that will use that. Then there is also a lot of websites that are already in WordPress and they will want to switch to headless, but keep their data into WordPress because all the team knows the back office and how it works, and transferring the data will take too much work. So I have already had a demand for that, a website named Music Tech. It's a big music blog with 8,000 posts. Musictech.com. Music Tech. It's awesome. I love this project. I have loved working on that. So I ported their blog of 8,000 posts from WordPress to Gatsby, with keeping the back office in WordPress and redoing the design with their new branding, etc. And they were super happy. But they contacted me specifically for that. So that's good for freelancer and agency, because I think the demand of people, companies that will need to transfer, to make this transition from traditional WordPress to headless without taking out WordPress will increase with the headless popularity, and it will become the norm because it's faster. When I show my theme, so website I build with Gatsby, with WordPress Gatsby, to people from WordPress and people from Codable who are good, say, wow, that's fast. You don't need to advocate that. It's just extremely fast. It's immediate when you change page, plus all the other advantages of security, flexibility, and all the things that we know. But it's obvious. You don't need to explain technically to anybody that it's better and faster because it's super fast. So that's one thing. And then what I hope is that the ecosystem of WP GraphQL will grow more and more, because that's what makes the heart of the headless. And really a big thanks to Jason, because without him, we will not have all that. So there is more and more plugins, WP GraphQL plugins, and to adapting WordPress plugins to headless. You should talk with Alex Barashkov, because we discuss about all the CMS headless CMS that I really like. I say, yes, but in WordPress, you have things that are already made, all the data for the post, you have Yoast and things like that. So I think as he works really with headless, and you will have a great discussion with him about that.
Cool.
And he's an agency owner, so it's...
And I think that bleeds into sort of the last serious question that we have. So like when you compare WordPress and headless WordPress to some of the other headless CMSs, like you have Sanity, Strappy, Storyblock, Contentful. What do you think WordPress needs to do to be, more like those?
Okay, so the third thing is it would be great if Gutenberg was really adapted to React, because personally I don't use Gutenberg in my themes because I cannot get properly React components. Well, there is a plugin for that, but I think it's not perfect. There is a post by Jason that is really great and explain all that technically, or you have to parse the content. So, for example, I work a lot with Storyblock lastly, and you have a real-time visual editor, and say, wow, if WordPress would be like that, if Gutenberg would be like that, that would be really, really great.
Okay. And that's probably the biggest thing we hear. And I won't get anybody's hopes up, but I know there's a lot of people working on solving that problem in a cleaner way than it is now.
Mm-mm-mm. Yes, and another thing, I hope that in the WP GraphQL space, something like the Atlas Content Modeler will evolve, because ACF is great, but sometimes you hack a bit the data. You cannot model the data as you want. So if you have some advanced data configuration, and I had an example like that last year with this project that was really hard, then it's not the best thing. So you need the data to be more flexible, to model it as you want. And so I hope that the Atlas Content Modeler will go to that. For the moment, I don't use it because I really want the flexible content, this possibility to build components and to build my own builder. But I really hope that in the future, plugins like that will extend WordPress to be really flexible in the way that headless CMS are.
It's funny because and Jeff and I work here.
Yeah,
and
I'm trying not to share like confidential roadmaps.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to share either. Yeah.
So I think I wish I could say it. But
I wish I could say it. And we're teasing you, listeners.
Yeah, exactly. Just to keep listening. But I think everybody will be pleasantly surprised about how those plugins come together in a way. So I don't know.
The Atlas Content Modeler, you mean?
Yeah, well, they're definitely, obviously WP Engine owns both of those now. And so they're definitely looking ACF, at how they work. Yeah, how they work in concert in developing the best strategy for, how that's going to move forward.
So a mix
like I said, have I said too much, Fran? I haven't said too much, right?
No, you've kept it high level. Basically, everybody, what Jeff's trying to say is
you will be happy.
Is about to drop.
That's
the bomb.
Smart. I'm just seeing the picture that WP Engine has acquired ACF and has Atlas Content Modeler, and now I can merge something with these two things. So yes, I'm seeing the picture.
And so like I think people will be pleasantly surprised. Like I was over the moon when they got ACF, and I was like, this is great because I've loved ACF, used it for a long time.
Yes.
And obviously having that coupled with the in-house headless thing, the talent that we have here, like this is going to be off the chain. So
we have a couple of minutes left, and I always like to ask like fun miscellaneous questions at the end of our guest, Alexa. And I feel like, you and I have gotten to know each other past couple of months, just like nerding out together on Discord. But I have a fun question for you. And we all have it as developers, guys, and this is the reason why, because I try to get inspiration from y'all, from my developer friends who've been in the game longer than I have, right? What is your go-to thing, Alexa? Like when you're coding and you're making your Gatsby themes, and like sometimes we all hit bugs and we debug and we're like, man, why isn't this working? I can't find the docs for this. My eyes are being twisted sideways now. I've been staring at lines of syntax for 3 hours and it's doing the same thing.
I've saved and refreshed 10 times.
10 times. I've deleted my node modules.
My God, it was a typo. It was a typo.
Missing semicolon.
That's in PHP. PHP gives you a blank screen.
The white screen of death.
But Alexa, like when you step away from the screen to just refresh your mind so you can get a fresh set of eyes, do you still act on the side for fun? What do you like to do on besides tech that kind of refreshes Alexa to get back and motivate back to get on that going out for dinner, seeing friends, having drink with them, and I'm a social person. I'm a people person, so I could say, I live in a beautiful place. There is nature, beach, mountains, and I love it too. But I'm a people person, and so seeing friends, going out, etc. That's what really refresh my mind. I feel like that's your sanctuary. That's your serenity. You feed off the energy of community, which is
absolutely.
why this is awesome that you're going into DevRel.
Absolutely.
Because
I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
I'm an extrovert that is not so common in tech. And I was Paulina that founded the themes with me. She doesn't work with me anymore. She's at Automatic, but she's an introvert, and she was explaining me that introverts are drained by social contacts. Even if she like it makes her tired. Me, it's the opposite. I can be super tired. I can be. Once I did a podcast and I was not feeling good, and after I was feeling fantastic because contact with people really energize me. So, and
man, you're in the perfect space. Plus, I've seen I've definitely, and if you haven't checked her out, definitely one of my favorite DevRel advocates is Jason Langsdorff, and Alexa was on that show. Learn with Jason. So check that out as well, because I think the way you deliver things, Alexa, and this is a gift of a developer relations member that I think is necessary when you apply for the job. Is a lot of us have teaching backgrounds, right? And we feel compelled to teach people to get more optimal, right? And we love it. We feed off that. And that's what you do. I think after watching your Learn with Jason episode, I was like, man,
thank you.
Why aren't you in DevRel?
I didn't know it. It's a funny thing. I've been asked to be DevRel, and I didn't understand why, because I was thinking it was about writing documentation and then I realized, and now I apply for certain companies, and I'm over the moon, because I think it's really like the melt of all the thing I am, the tech, the creation, the learning, the teaching, the helping people, the acting because speaking on stage, and it's like everything that it's there. So I'm super happy.
That's awesome.
To finally find my path.
Well, I will say this, and this is kind of like what I've realized joining the DevRel team here at WP Engine, and now you getting into it and kind of having this community with all my DevRel friends, is it actually becomes just that, a community where we're almost like it's like a fraternity, right? Like we care, a brother and sisterhood, where we actually DevRel is a cool spot to be in, but it's also super caring when you actually are. It doesn't matter if you work at Vercel, Netlify, Storyblock, wherever, right? WP Engine. If you're DevRel, Dev Advocate, and you're talking to another DevRel member there, man, it's just simpatico. They just get you.
Everybody just loves to help, and I think that's the beautiful
Yes, of
thing.
course, it's our nature. It's our nature. So it's
and I will say, like, to the two extroverts I'm talking with, for people who are like, man, I wanted to get into DevRel, but I'm a little bit introverted. I'll say you can do that too. If you want to sit back and write documentation like this guy,
yes,
that's a blessed potential as well. So like Fran over here brings the stoke, gets all of our guests. I'm going to go crash after this and edit the podcast like in silence. So there are lots of career paths for everybody, but you're going to have to talk to people. So
yeah, there is different path of DevRel. That's what I have learned too. And at WordCamp Europe in Porto, there was a chat for DevRels. So because I have a friend there, and so I talk with them, I make new friends, and it was super, super nice. And we talked that there is DevRel that goes more to conference and videos and speaking. My friend Paul Scandon from Gatsby prefer writing, and I prefer videos. So I did a video for Gatsby a few months ago too. It's not published. I don't know why, but but yes, and other people would go on documentation or on social media. It's really very diverse as role, and I love it. And so
And you've been doing it for a long time, like whether that was your title or you were paid to do it or not.
Yes, that's what people say to me. I didn't know it.
You were doing it.
Yep. And I mean, I think both, like, a lot of people who get into it find that. Like, I've been writing and making YouTube videos for a while, and it's like, oh wow, I can do this, and that's a job. Like, fantastic. Like, sign me up. So,
but also, Alexa, I gotta tell you, like, if you ever decided to like do a side career as an actress, you have a very good screen presence. If I was a director, I'd hire you for a movie.
Thank you.
Because as my leading lady, maybe you win an Oscar on the side too.
There you go.
Who knows what will happen? You know,
you never know.
Late careers that happen, passing by DevRel and then going back to cinema. No,
Oscar-winning actress and developer relations member Alexa Spalato is on the podcast.
I have a very good friend. He made a short movie and he went to the Oscars.
Oh wow!
One of my best friends. Yes, he had a short movie on the Oscars in 2019. So now we will make his long movie too.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's super
so
cool. That's super
so cool.
Well,
but I'm happy in DevRel.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're getting into that side of things. And as we wind down here, I just want to say one thing, and then I'll let you have some last words, Alexa, if there's anything you want to say or any announcements that you might have. But again, thanks for coming on. I'm super honored. You're definitely one of my favorite people in this space.
Thank you.
Especially how you've pushed this movement and opened up not only like women in tech, but people like me who are trying to like see if they can do this. It was people like yourself that assisted me along in my career. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you. That make my day, and thanks for having me. I'm super happy to be guest here too, and having great time with you all. So big thank you.
Cool.
And super happy.
And maybe we'll have you back once your new role is public, and we can talk about that.
Oh, we could talk. Yeah, we could talk about that. Yeah.
Yes, cool. Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to the Headless WP podcast. If you liked today's episode, go ahead and give us a share or a like on whatever platform you're listening on. And be sure to keep in touch with the WP Engine Developer Relations team on Twitter, Discord, or through our website. Thanks for listening.